So here we go again. It's Wednesday evening. It's 7 o'clock. It's time for Championship Rugby League with Craig Lingard and myself. How are you doing, Mucker? You well?
Melting like everybody else in the UK, but we'll complain about it, won't we?
Well, everybody's asking what's the factor on the bonnet, mate?
I don't use it. Don't believe in it.
Just put the cap on.
Yeah.
Good man. I was training currently because even though I know you do evening training, it's even hot in the evenings, isn't it? How are the boys coping in this? No,
Yeah, not too bad. We were in had a bit of a lighter session last night in the gym. Did as review as unit review and team review, and a little bit of a lighter session on the field. You know, finish a little bit early, let the players get off and get back and watch the football. It was game day +2, so it's not a great deal that you can do anyway. So nice easy win, just get the players off the field a little bit early and get them off and refresh them back for Thursday and prep for our game on Sunday.
Absolutely. And we were talking before we come on air. How is that round ball game the national sport? Somebody else?
Well, it is. I mean, I go to Leeds United games, so it's difficult for me to comment on. But I do sit there and watch some games a little bit like last night, and you sort of think, well, you know, there's got to be a more exciting version of a sport than this. And you know, so involved in rugby league, you sort of think, why can't that be the national sport? Because it's so much more exciting, isn't it?
Absolutely, mate. And we even postpone weekly by 24 hours. We're doing it right after this show tonight, live at 8 p.m. Unbelievable. What did we do that for? Unbelievable. Why on earth did we postpone after that shower that we saw last night? But anyway, hopefully we get the usual crowd in tonight. We didn't want to have split loyalties last night. We appreciate people want to watch the England games. We thought we'd move it. Right, let's get into Championship Rugby League. And we're going to start with a really disappointing start, I think, for this particular episode. Keighley Cougars, the owners O'Neill and Garcia, pulling out of Keighley, predominantly because of online abuse. It's a real shame that we're seeing this in our sport. Like me, I'm sure you were very disappointed on this.
Yeah, I think, you know, looking sort of behind the scenes as well, I think I weren't too surprised that it were going to come, to be honest with you. You know, I think that, like, even financially as well, running a rugby league club it takes a lot of money and a lot of time. And if you're not getting the return investment, whether it's financial or the feel good factor or whatever it might be, then you're going to pull out. And it was a little bit of a worry that it was going to come. And they've announced it this week, and it is disappointing. You know, rugby league is predominantly and historically been one of the sports that's been quite open to basically anybody and everything, you know. Yeah. So it's a little bit of a disappointing for us as a sport in rugby league, if that's the reason that they've given for leaving the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. Inclusivity without any doubt whatsoever. And I think there's a little bit of, you know, be careful what you wish for, because, you know, again, from the outside looking in, it would appear that they were committed to the cause. You know, they were trying to run the club in a prudent fashion based on what's going on currently in the second tier. And of course, now it's chaotic in the fact that, you know, will they get an investor? Who's that investor going to be? It just creates a big problem. I do, having read online and other people, it appears that for probably the minority that were online and the trolls and all the rest of it, that they're actually well thought of in the club.
Yeah, well, there's obviously a massive history there, isn't there? You know, Ryan's dad, O'Neill, around in Cougar Mania days, you know, so from the club for probably 4 decades, and you know, so it's a massive part of their heritage, their family, you know. So, and I think that's one of the reasons why Ryan and Cowie took over, because of the I guess the family connection and the issue that they've had with the club, you know. So it is disappointing that we're losing, I guess, two people to the game that wanted to run a club viable and financially viable and not run it into the ground, you know. So it's a disappointing development for rugby league and for Keighley Cougars, because as you say, you don't know in this day and age who else is going to put the money where the mouth is and take over a rugby league club.
No, and that's it. Wanted to, and I think that's the real thing that I took out of what you just said. You know, two people who wanted to run the club, and I think that's like I say, just be careful what you wish for. It's a shame that, like I say, that happens. I mean, from your perspective, at Sheffield, how prominent? I mean, look, I'm a great believer. You know, if you're in the public eye, if you're in professional sport, you know, constructive criticism, it comes with the territory, and rightly so. rightly so. Fans who pay the hard-earned money to go for a turnstile, they want to be entertained. At the very least, they want to see maximum effort from the players on the field, and they're entitled to an opinion. Of course, they are. But from your perspective as Sheffield coach, and of course that your players, this online keyboard warrior culture that we're in, how much impact does that have when in the dressing room from your perspective?
On me, it has zero impact whatsoever. I pay no attention to it. I very rarely go on social media to look at anything on message boards because there's absolutely no point, because it's very rare that people go on there. We've had this conversation previously where I guess 90% of people or 90% of comments on any sort of fans forum or any club site, it'll be negative. And that's just the way that we are. I think as a society now, it's easy to be negative. It's easy to try and drag people down. And I think it says more about the individuals that are posting them comments than anything else. And I've said it before to players, not necessarily this season to the Sheffield players, but if you want to go onto social media after you've had a good game and see people praise you, you've got to be able to go on there after you've had a bad game and see people ripping into you. That's why I don't think it's a very good place to be, because for your mental health or whatever it is, if you're that way inclined that you need the plaudits from people to make you feel good, then when you're not getting the plaudits from people and you're getting people that are slagging off your performance or slagging off how you're conducting yourself, then you've got to take the rough with the smooth. Some people it will impact more than others. Some people it won't impact one little bit, and I think there's some people that have had a lot of abuse. I'll take George Griffin at Sheffield. When he were at Castleford, the last couple of seasons at Castleford, he took some dogs abuse to Griff. One of the nicest blokes you could ever meet, one of the hardest working players on a rugby league field, and he took some dogs abuse online, did Griff. And luckily for him, he's very, very strong. He's got a great network around him. I think he took a great deal of notice of the abuse, but it's more your family. I got a bit at Castleford as well. You can't get away from it. And certainly last season at Sheffield took a lot of it as well. But it's more your family and your friends that look at stuff. It impacts on them more than anybody else. And I always say to my family and friends, don't bother looking at it, because there's no good going to come out of it. And then you get people responding to it and replying to it, and they're getting the backwards and forwards. Just leave it alone. I think I think in general it impacts more on the people around the players than the players themselves. Yeah.
I think that's great advice. I mean, look, even little old me, every now and again, you talk about trolling. I mean, all I do is run a few podcasts and give an honest and open opinion. But, the amount of times that supposedly people are going to be coming to a game that I'm attending and knock me block off is unbelievable. And it's at the end of the day, it's a game. And I always say that, everybody should be passionate about the team. It's an outlet at a weekend. Go and enjoy your rugby team. But when all is said and done, it's a game. That's what it is. It's, for that 80 minutes, nothing is more important. But after that, go and have a beer, go and have a laugh. Find the positives and move on. It's as simple as that. But just wanted to get your insight.
I always say, like, in any other industry or organisation or walk of life, it won't be accepted. If you walked into Tesco's and Doris didn't scan your milk correctly, you won't go online to Tesco's and start slagging Doris off, would you? Or stand there calling him out names under the sun, screaming and shouting, would you? It just seems to be that if you're a sports person or it's something to do with sports, it's a free for all for people to give you dogs abuse.
Of course, Harolds are also available at the checkout. Absolutely, mate. On a more positive slant, Oldham been doing great on the field. Oldham this year have had a torrid time. Mike Ford and Bill Quinn, etc. But great on the field. They've been doing really well. They've been chalking off the wins, and now, of course, news comes out that it looks as though Martin Hall and Terry Flanagan are going to be taking over at Oldham. Hopefully, this brings the stability off the field that, to be fair, they're producing on it.
Yeah, they are. We've said a number of times, haven't we, this year, the squad that Oldham have got and the quality of players that they've got, and I guess the quality of rugby league that they're producing at the minute is first class. And it's just nice that an historic club like Oldham look like now they're going to get a little bit more security off the field. Whether that impacts on the finances and the playing budget moving forward, obviously coming in, and are they going to start, I guess, bringing players in on a lower salary and moving people on who are earning the big money just to balance the books with the new salary cap coming into the Championship. maybe that's something that they need to do, and that's something that they're going to be looking at doing moving forward. But certainly a positive news for Oldham off the field, because it's been great on the field for them this year as well.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. Interesting. Last week, ahead of the curve, you were talking about the implications of the 1895 Cup on the Sheffield Eagles. Swinton Lions has joined that debate this week. Of course, they're also impacted by the 1895 Cup final. And they were saying, because I think theirs is an away fixture at London, if I'm right. I think yours is Widnes, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. And they were saying that, this is where there's a bit of a disconnect between the Rugby Football League and these teams, because they were saying, well, look, to ask part-time professionals midweek they said they haven't got a break in the calendar between now and the end of the season weekend-wise. It's full on from here on in. And they said, to ask semi-professional players to give up a day's work and overnight and probably impact a second day's work for a game of rugby league. This is where there is a disconnect, isn't there, between the art of the possible, where the governing body is concerned, and what the clubs can actually expect from their players.
100%. I just think it's, for me personally, as an individual, I think it's a disgraceful decision having the final on a Monday evening, the day after the last game of the season, because we've got an odd number of teams in the competition. If it's your weekend off, everybody else is playing. So there's no other time in the calendar to fit a fixture in. So why not just delay the playoffs by a week and have the final the week after the season finishes, delay the start of the playoffs for a week, have the showpiece event, if you want to call it a showpiece, even though it's not a showpiece event now, but have the 1895 Cup final the following week from the end of the league season, and then the week after that, then you can kick off the playoffs as a fresh. What we've got now, we've got 4 teams that have been impacted, they're going to have to play a midweek game. Ours isn't going to be as bad in terms of travel, because we're at home anyway, but Widnes will have to come over to us at some point, whether it be a Wednesday night or a Thursday night. But as you said, travelling down to London from Swinton for a midweek game is just absolutely diabolical. And I just think it just shows a lack of thought, a lack of consideration for the players that are playing in the Championship, the competition in the Championship. And even if we were full time, having to play midweek, having to play 3 games in a week is poor consideration anyway. Just put the players back a week. Give all the teams a week off, unless you're in that 1895 Cup final, and then they start the playoffs the weekend after. But because the 1895 Cup weren't really a priority this season anyway, we didn't know if we were playing it, what format we were going to be playing, where the final was going to be played after the season had kicked off. Then it makes it very, very difficult. And I think they even announced the final on the wrong day on the launch of the Championship campaign anyway. Yeah.
No, absolutely, mate.
They announced the grand final as the wrong date on the kickoff of the.
That's right. Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. Yeah. No, obviously the tickets are now available. By the way, I noticed on the Rugby Football League website, the tickets for the 1895 Cup final are now on sale. 20 notes gets you to the 1895 Cup final. I'm sure Widnes will travel in numbers with it, obviously just being down the road at the HJ in Warrington. On this topic as well about part-time professionals and the impact on them. It wasn't lost on me, the announcement this week from Dewsbury that the McShane brothers have decided to depart Dewsbury to go back into amateur rugby league. And again, some of the things that they were citing were work commitments, family commitments, etc. It's a real problem, isn't it? Again, there's a great example of the state currently of that semi-professional game is not conducive to players who rely on income outside the sport, and of course have got family commitments outside the sport.
No, it's not, and part-time sport, it is a huge commitment. When you're full-time, it's your job. You're doing it during the day. You're spending the evenings with your family, unless you're playing on a Thursday or a Friday evening, whatever it is. But it is like being in a normal job. When you're playing part-time, you're actually working a normal job, and then you're doing overtime with rugby league on the majority of teams train 3 evenings a week, or 3 evenings and a Saturday morning they play on a weekend. So you lose all your weekends, you lose at least two potentially 3 evenings a week, and you've got a family to run and everything else that goes around life around that. So when all these commitments come together, if you're not getting rewarded for it financially, then you sort of think, what's the point? And obviously the McShanes, great amateur players, have come into the semi-pro game and kicked on as well and shown that they've got that quality. But I guess dropping back into the amateur game, if you still want to play rugby and you don't want to go train, or you've got some work or whatever, then there's not really as much of a consequence for you missing a training session or two, or going away for an holiday with your family, a summer holiday with your family, or going on weddings or whatever it might be, which you can't do as a part-time player. You miss out on all that. So it's that work-life balance and what's right for you at that particular time.
Yeah, do you know what? That brings this, back to that piece that we started with in terms of the online community and what they do, and especially in the second tier, as you say. Let's have a bit of respect. Yes, be disappointed about performances and the results. And I think, as you said brilliantly, players accept the fact that they're open to that constructive criticism on the field. But also remember what Craig's just said there is what these guys are doing for your entertainment. They're running they're running a full-time job. They're playing part-time rugby league. Without them, you haven't got a club, and at times I think you've got to take a step back and realise that the great lengths that these men go to provide entertainment every week for you fans. I think it's a full
I think just to touch on that as well, just to highlight a little bit more about the committee from a coaching point of view. When I actually moved into full-time coaching from part-time coaching, my hours reduced because I was working full-time at the same time. You've got to preview every single game. You've got to review every single game. So me as an individual, I'll watch at least the 3 previous games of the team that we're playing. So I've got at least 3 games to watch per week and preview that. You've got to review your game that you've had at the weekend as well. You're planning your training, again, making sure everything else is all right. You're kind of corresponding with your coaching staff. Any issues that go on with your players that you've got to deal with as well. So you're getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to preview and review games, and you're going to bed at after midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, because you've got to watch these games and do your rugby league jobs in and around your family life, in and around your full-time jobs. So the hours that you do it's massive. Now I'm lucky I don't sleep a great deal. So at the time of me doing that as a part-time coach and a full-time worker, then it was all right for me. But as I said, when I dropped into full-time rugby, my hours came down significantly because I got my evenings back because we weren't training on the evening. So it was a massive, massive culture shock for me, actually. I was sat there at home some evenings thinking I should be doing a little bit more. What should I be doing now? But everything's already done.
Yeah, very interesting. Right, let's get into the action at the weekend. Do you know what a bonkers weekend this was in the Championship? Because, to be fair, for the teams that won, it was pretty straightforward in most of the games. I mean, there's a couple of really odd stories that we're going to pick up on as we go through the matches. But we'll start with yours. Great win. This must have felt good for you and for the lads, especially second half. I mean, that was a bit of a theme this weekend as well. But your second half performance, you really put Whitehaven to the sword, mate. You must be feeling pretty good over that.
Yeah, really pleased. It's probably the first time that we've done that this year since we played Swinton in the 80-95 club round right at the start of the season, that we've actually put a score on a team. And I thought, as we were talking off air, having Greg Eden playing full-back for us just changed our attacking dynamic. Since we lost Matty Marsh at the start of the season, we've had Joe Brown playing at full-back, which he's done a decent job for us, but he's a winger, and you lose a lot of the qualities that Joe Brown's got by him playing full-back, and we've actually got Greg in there now. He's a running threat, he's a passing threat, and I don't think it's any coincidence that we had probably our best attacking performance since Marsh has been injured, when we've had somebody who's a naturally gifted full-back playing there. And I thought we exploited Whitehaven a little bit. I know they lost a few injuries. Certainly down their right-hand side, they lost a winger early on, so it's a move centre to winger, back rower to centre. So we sort of exploited that change in the defensive system on their right edge. So I think Whitehaven had a tough journey down as well. They only got there sort of 45 minutes before kickoff with a lot of traffic up in Cumbria as well. So they had a pretty rough day.
Well, both on and off the field, then clearly, but no, good win for you, mate. Outstanding. Congratulations on that, and of course, just keeps you well and truly in that playoff group. Halifax, we expected this. Went to North Wales. Probably not the score as big as that. It's a hell of a win, 94 points to 0 over North Wales. A couple of hat-tricks in there. Lucas Mason, Ben Will, and braces for Darius Carter, Ben Tibbs, and Will Brough in this one. Very straightforward win. Not really much we're going to take from that, but a professional performance from Halifax. When you see a window of opportunity, you've got to jump through it, haven't you?
Yeah, you have, and it's worrying times, isn't it, for North Wales? It's great to have them back in the competition, but there's what sort of value are we adding at this moment in time when you're seeing scores of 190 odd and 80 odd week in, week out? It's not a great look for the game. It's not a great look for the team, and and you've got to feel for the players that are actually putting the bodies on the line and playing and putting their hands up to play. I guess knowing full well they're going to get a hiding week in, week out. So it's a disappointing situation for all concerned.
Yeah, another nil as well at Newcastle, 66 points to nil over Rochdale. I think, you probably expect a little bit more from Rochdale. We both expected a Newcastle win. 66-0, probably not that, I wouldn't have thought. Your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, it's a disappointing for Rochdale with some of the games how they've played this season, some of the wins that they've got, and some of the performances that they've put in. But I guess we're at that stage of the season now where, we're in the second half of the season now. We're starting to see, I guess, some teams, some of the part-time teams and some of the lower teams that were maybe in League One last year, where the consistency and the performances isn't quite there. And then you've got a full-time team like Newcastle, where that quality is going to shine. And I think you might see some more performances between now and the end of the season, where some teams drop off significantly and some teams are now gearing up towards the business end of the season of the playoffs. And I think that's what you get when you merge the two competitions together, and you're not used to that sort of intensity and that quality week in, week out. Then that's where you're going to get some of these big scores coming in, I think. Yeah,
the disparities between what was the old Championship and League One. Hunslet also nilled 48-0 by Widnes. I mean, look, Widnes for me, we've been saying it for weeks. Widnes are in great form, and we said on this show last week the signing of Danny Richardson, we felt at this point in the season was a masterstroke, and he had a phenomenal game in this one. Did Danny? Another great win for Widnes.
Yeah, they just seem to keep getting better and better, don't they? And I think the benefit is they don't seem to be picking up too many injuries as well. It's always nice when you can keep having that consistent team in there. And Hunslet, I guess, conversely to that, they've had a lot of injuries themselves this year and getting bodies out in the training park and having to get people in on loan and sort of beg, steal and borrow bodies, and that impacts on you as well. So I think, again, as we progress between now and the end of the season, I think the teams that stay fit and healthy are the ones that are going to be kicking on and having a real dig and going deep into these playoffs. And Widnes certainly seem to be in a decent position to do that.
Well, they're due a bit of good luck at the back end of this year. Of course, they had torrid luck with injuries at the end of last year. So we wish Mr. Coleman and his side all the very best. Of course, a couple of big games coming up against London as well. We said last week, and we were spot on when we talked about Midland and Swinton, that all of a sudden this was a difficult one to call based on the way Swinton have really rallied over the last couple of months. And lo and behold, brilliant win. I think that might be their first away win of the season. I might be right, I might be wrong on that, but 24 points to 6 at Midland. This is another step in the right direction for the Swinton Lions. Yeah,
it's a fantastic result, and I guess a disappointing one for Midlands. We know their form has dipped significantly in recent weeks, and the way at the start of the season, and they'll be disappointed with the dip in form that they've had. But you can't take anything away from Swinton. They've been getting better week on week, more consistently, and as we said previously, the experienced players that they've brought in just to give them that additional bonus, that additional benefit, and know how to get them over the line in close games. They've certainly benefited from that by picking up the number of wins that they have done recently.
Yeah, fair play to him. I mean, the Swinton fans, after, let's be fair, a really tough start to the season, must be have a little bit of a spring in the step as they're going through those turnstiles and getting the hot dogs. They must be getting a little bit happy down there at Swinton at the moment. Right, this for me is perhaps I'm gonna throw this at you as perhaps one of the most bonkers games that we've ever seen in Super League, Championship, Rugby, you name it. I can't ever remember. The old cliche of a game of two halves has never been as perfectly descriptive of Barrow Raiders against Dewsbury Rams. This was bonkers. For those who haven't picked up on this and just saw the score, Dewsbury 28-0 up at half-time. And then Barrow come out and win the second half 39-0 and win. I mean, that's just bonkers, mate. Bonkers.
Yeah. I mean, I've watched that game yesterday, obviously in prep for us playing Dewsbury this week, and I hope we get the Dewsbury team that performed in the second half, and not the Dewsbury team that performed in the first half. I thought they were very, very good in the first half. Consequently, I thought Barrow were pretty awful in the first half, and a lot of errors, a lot of unforced errors, and turning cheap possession over and giving Dewsbury the opportunity to attack. But Dewsbury very, very clinical with the opportunities that they had. I thought they were very, very workmanlike and looked after each other. And I think what you get with Dewsbury is a team that's really, really close and they do look after each other. I think for them as well, the first 40 minutes on the back of, as you mentioned earlier on, the loss of the two McShane brothers, they could have quite easily gone up to Barrow with the tail between the legs and thinking that the world's against them and Sultan got a pasting. But the 28-0 in that first half, they were very, very good value for money for that. And second half, Barrow came out and a little bit more direct. I thought Barrow in the second half just to get on the front foot and then score some nice tries. And at the end of the game, I think the five in the sin bin, 1 sent off in the last minute of the game. So a little bit of old school biff as well.
Yeah. And do you know what? Do you know what? Let's throw a conspiracy theory out. Let's just throw it out right now. Right? I think if ever there was a cup of tea scandal, it's this one. Because I think, and I weren't there I'm just going to throw it out there. Dewsbury Rams came with Yorkshire tea. They had it before the game started, and Barrow were having Tesco's finest decaf. And then somebody went, hang on a minute, lads. And they swapped the tea bags at half time. That's what I'm going. Because there's no doubt Dewsbury second half with decaf. Barrow came out full of Yorkshire tea. I mean, I've never, ever seen a game where it's just spun everything, absolutely everything. You just at times you were looking, have these swapped shirts at half time? I mean, it was just bonkers because it was almost a carbon copy, but the other way around. It was just like I've never seen form switch 40 minutes at a time in all my time. I mean, if there's people out there that can, of course, say, no, actually, this game was similar back in the day, then good luck to you. But in my time watching rugby league, never ever seen that.
There was a game a few years back, funnily enough, involving Sheffield, where Sheffield went down to London. And I think they were 28, 30 points up at half time, and London actually came back and beat them.
Wow.
I think that was about
by nil. By nil, Craig, but by nil.
I think so, yeah. I think they nilled them in the second half and they scored 30 odd points in the second half.
Fair play. Well, there you go. I bow to your knowledge, sir. But like I say, and I say, like you, I was like, I need to have a watch of that because that's just bonkers. And like I say, I'm genuinely looking, going, you'd be forgiven for thinking at half time they went off and swapped shirts and they come back out. Unbelievable.
Momentum's a strange thing, though, mate. It's difficult to get back. It's a little bit like when Wigan played at Wakefield a couple of weeks back, and you're watching that, and you can almost feel that Wigan are going to score again. Wigan are going to score again, and no matter what Wakefield did, you always thought and felt that Wigan were on the front foot, and it was a bit like a juggernaut where once it gets going, it's very, very difficult to stop. And in both halves, that's exactly what it was. Dewsbury had it in the first half, Barrow had it in the second half, and it's very, very difficult once that momentum's in your favour or against you. It's difficult to drag it back. That's why it's really important that once you've got it, or once you've got that sense that you're going to get the momentum, you've got to be really clinical with it.
Yeah, I mate, Mr. Applegarth found that out all too well at York. I mean, Wigan were exceptional, absolutely exceptional. Big 5 games coming up now at York. When you look at the play, but anyway, that's another show. We'll carry on with the Championship. We've given Oldham flowers, and Batley have been playing well. This is a good win, a really good win for Oldham. Very professional, very controlled. I was very impressed.
Yeah. I think these sort of results show you where a team is, So if a team's winning by 40 and 50 points every week, you can give them all the plaudits and say, yeah, they're playing really well. But when you come up against a team like a Batley, which historically have been very tough to beat, very dogged, very determined, and as a team to beat them, you've got to outwork them. And if you can do that against Batley, and the scoreline suggests that that's exactly what they did, that shows a different side to a team rather than just beating a team by 50 and 60 points every week. So, good signs there for Oldham.
Yeah, and you talk about player pool in the upper echelons in Super League, and there's certain players for me that you look at some of the squads in Super League, and once you get past shirt numbers 22, you're going, a bit of youth in there, and that's a good thing. But there's certain players for me where you go, surely they should be in a squad in Super League, and Jack Walker for me is case in point. I think Jack Walker for me can play multitude of positions, never looks out of place at fullback. Had another good game in this one. I mean, I do find it quite odd that there's players like Jack. I mean, you could put Smithy in there as well, Morgan Smith. Your thoughts? I mean, I actually think Jack Walker today is almost that in that bridge element. I think he would be a very, very good player, or certainly a squad player for any Super League side.
No, I agree. I think with 14 teams in Super League, and you can't find a place for somebody like Jack Walker, like I say, who he's an out-and-out fullback, but can cover in the arse as well and do a decent job in the arse. You would think that there'd be a place there, but I guess from a financial point of view, from a Super League club, to get Jack Walker in there, you having to pay him a full-time wage.
Yeah,
you're bringing him in as a fullback. You've only got one fullback. It's not like a winger or a centre or a back row or a middle where you've got a multitude of options that you need in there. And a lot of these clubs as well, they'll have a young player that's coming through that's probably going to be the next cab off the ranks, which financially they won't be paying them a huge amount of money. So from a financial point of view, it probably makes sense for the Super League clubs not to bring him in, because you'd have to pay him significantly more than one of the younger players that are probably, like I say, going to be the next cab off the ranks.
Yeah, true. Well, if Jack's watching, we're giving you flowers, mate. You know, I've always liked watching Jack. I think he's a really, really good player on his day, and he was outstanding at the weekend. Right,
very nice bloke as well. Very good professional. We had him at Sheffield last year. Very good professional. So I can't speak any highly of him as a bloke as well.
Absolutely. Well, invite him on, Craig. We'll get him on, and we'll have a chat with Jack. Good guy. Salford 52, Workington 28. We said last week again. We called it. We said Salford might fancy this one. We did say that, and they delivered. Again, like yourself, like Barrow, Salford as well. Second half performance from Salford, very, very strong, and a great win for him. Delighted for him.
Yeah, massive victory for them. As we said last week, we identified this one as a game that Salford, I guess both teams would have been looking at winning with. As the league tables are as they are, and Salford now just outside the playoffs, and will give this victory will give them massive confidence, and they'll be looking up now rather than looking down and thinking, can we snag one of these last couple of playoff places and try and get in there towards the end of the season.
Well, you know what? That's a great shout, because they're just outside, aren't they? They're just outside, 2 points off the playoffs, which again, when you consider where Salford were before a ball was kicked this season, for them to be just under those playoff places, whether they get that final, whether they manage to get in there or not, I think by any standards, credit to everybody involved at Salford. It'd have been very easy for this year to almost just be a nothing season, and somehow they've turned it into a very respectable one. So there's hope yet. There's hope yet for Salford. There's no doubt about that. Massive well done to them. And then of course we also said Goole. And of course we spoke at the start of the show about Keighley, and of course this certainly didn't help. And I know that there was a lot of real upset at the end of the game where Keighley Cougars were concerned in terms of this week, because they would have expected to have gone to Goole and get a win. To lose 50 points to 16, terrible for Keighley fans, and of course they're going to ask questions. But for Goole, a very welcome win. Yeah,
massively so, and I think we need to caveat that with the players that Goole managed to get in from OKR.
Absolutely.
They brought 4 or 5 players in from OKR to strengthen them, and I think that plays a significant difference. That plays a significant part when you've got two teams that on paper are very, very close and very, very evenly matched. Then when you bring 4 or 5 players in from a full-time club that arguably could be playing in Super League themselves, that makes a massive, massive difference. But it's all right putting them players in there. You've still got to perform once them players are in there, and they certainly did that.
Well, I mean, young Flynn's there. I mean, they put Flynn Holden in, who was signed from Warrington's reserves by Hull KR. They put him out on loan to Goole. I know Flynn very, very well. That is a name that people just need to pop into the memory box. Flynn Holden plays at fullback, played in this game, got their second try on the day. And I'm pretty confident that the Goole Vikings fans would have seen also what I've seen for the past few years at Warrington. This lad's a player. He's an absolute player. He was one of those that went across from KR and had an absolute impact in this game. So you're absolutely right, mate, to call that one out. And again, where you're concerned, Flynn Holden, I always pop a few in your head. There's another name for you out of the Warrington ranks, mate. Flynn Holden, of course. We'll let Ollie Morgan watch. We'll be back when Ollie's back. And there's young Flynn doing what young Flynn did. Well done to him. And then, of course, unfortunately for them, they succumbed to Hurricanes last night. This would have been a good win. I think this would have been a relieving win, I think, for Midland. It was a competitive game, 38-22 to the Hurricanes. They certainly didn't roll over, didn't goal. It was a good competitive match. And this is, again, an interesting one. 11 tries scored, Craig, all by different players.
Yeah.
Mad. I mean, again, you don't see that often, do you? So many tries being scored and all by individual players.
No, you don't. As you say, it'd be a confidence boost for Midlands. Well, that, as I said earlier on, their form's been a little bit hit and miss over the recent weeks and maybe a couple of months. So they'll be very, very pleased that they managed to get that win and put a little bit more of a distance between them and the teams below them, because they were, the fishing rod had come out and they started being real back in, haven't they? So they'll be very, very pleased about that one.
Absolutely, you couldn't be more spot on. I mean, we mentioned Salford, of course, they played 16 games, but Midland, of course, going into that game last night, were on 13 points, just 1 point ahead of Salford, albeit they had, of course, a couple of games in hand, but that now puts them 3 points clear of Salford. They'll feel a lot better off the back of that, without any doubt whatsoever. Right, let's get into this week's games. Starting off on Friday night, and this for me, arguably, this is, for me, the game of the round. This should be a real blockbuster of a championship game. Both teams in good form. Widnes Vikings against Oldham. Something tells me, Craig, that even though there's a small game involving Leeds and Hull KR on Friday night, you might be tempted by this one if it was being streamed. Widnes against Oldham. It's got something about it, and it should be a belter. 7:30.
No, it should be. Like I said, two teams that are, I guess, outside of London and Newcastle, the two form teams in the competition, and it's a head-to-head that's very, very mouthwatering, isn't it? And I think Widnes beat Oldham at Oldham in the last earlier on in the season. I think Jordan Abdul had a decent game there, and kicked Oldham to death on that occasion. But obviously Jordan's not there now. But Danny Richardson comes back in and takes over that mantle. So it's got all the makings of a great contest with two form teams in the championship.
Can you pick it? Tough.
Put me on the spot here. Now, do you know what? I'm gonna go Widnes. I think defensively, Widnes, they've not conceded a point in the last 3 games after Widnes. So I think defensively, if they can maintain that solidity that's shown in defence, we've shown that they can score points as well. I think that defensive element might just help them out this week. So yeah, I'm gonna veer towards Widnes. I
think, like I say, both in great form. Both in form. The home advantage, I think, and Widnes will want to really start to refine their game if they've got any chance. And nobody's giving them a chance in the 1895. But if you've got any chance, they need to be going into that final in tip-top shape and form. And the interesting thing about this one as well is both played 14 games this season. Widnes 2 points behind Oldham, and every point on the night is going to count twice in terms of for and against, and that could be very, very important. At the moment, Oldham have got a 79-point lead where that's concerned on Widnes. But like I say, every point counts twice, and at this part of the season, that matters, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I'm not sure whether both these teams are in the same situation. I think there's, other than London, because obviously we're looking up now to try and get in this top 6, and I think there's 3 out of the other 5 teams that don't play London, and there's 3 out of the 5 teams that play North Wales. So there's an 8-point swing there for us with teams that don't play London and teams that do play North Wales. And not only is it the points on the leaderboard, but it's also the for and against as well. So I'm not sure where London and where Widnes and Oldham sort of sit with that, who they're playing, who they don't play. I guess it's not just the teams that they're playing against each other this week, but it's the teams that they're playing in future weeks as well that can impact on that plus and minus points difference.
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? That's a great shout. Let's see if we can find out whilst we're waiting. I'm just looking at a quick look at Widnes' fixtures. They play North Wales. They play North Wales on the 12th of July, so that's certainly an opportunity there. But they also play London, and that's on the 2nd of August. So of course that's going to be a curtain raiser for the 1895. So that's interesting. As for Oldham, I'll just quickly check on Oldham whilst we're thinking, see what they've got coming up. Oldham, have they got London? Let's have a quick look. Oldham. Tell you what, though, you look at Oldham's fixtures here, just picking a couple out. They've got Hunslet. That they'll fancy that. There's no doubt about it. They're in there. They do play London. So, again, those 2 teams will be playing London. Opportunity. Whilst they're not playing North Wales, they are, and I'm sorry to say this to Hunslet fans, they are playing Hunslet, which at the moment looks as though that could be a decent fixture for him. But yeah, it's like I say, pretty similar. Pretty similar. We can't do all of the teams that are in the top six, but those particular two have got opportunities, but have also got London in their future. So that's going to be interesting. Very interesting indeed. Right, let's move on to, we have got a couple of games on Saturday, and we've got the first one kicking off at 3:00. Goole against Rochdale. That's an interesting game all of a sudden, isn't it? Goole, I know, good win at the weekend, a fighting defeat against Midland in midweek. But that said, going back to what we've been saying throughout this show, it's 3 games in a week. Does that bite them against Rochdale?
Potentially, and I believe there's reserve team fixtures this weekend as well. So does that impact on the players that they'll potentially get from OKR? I think it probably will do. So, from a Rochdale point of view, you would think that not having the OKR players in there might help them a little bit. But they're coming off the back of a 60-point defeat themselves, aren't they, Rochdale? So it's a difficult one to call.
Yeah, again, I'm going to go Rochdale. I just got exactly as you say. The KR players you'd expect to be took back to their team. 3 games in a week, that's tough going, at championship level, and maybe that just gets Rochdale win. One thing's for certain, if Goole do come out of that on the other side, all due respect to him, because that is some effort that they put in the last 7 days. Newcastle, they go up against Whitehaven. Again, Newcastle, I tell you what really surprised me at the weekend, he got a couple of tries as well, was that King Vuniyayawa was playing for Newcastle. When you consider the bench at York, it lacked a bit of size. Only really Xavier Var on the bench that had any real size. I was very surprised that the King wasn't retained by York. Had a great game for Newcastle, but I was surprised by that. And something tells me that could change. I think this week we'll have to wait and see. But even with the 2-ins and throw-ins that Newcastle will probably have in their squad, you'd be hard to look past Newcastle for this one for me.
Yeah, I think so. I think Whitehaven picked up a couple of injuries as well. Not sure how significant they are, but if they are missing, then that weakens the Whitehaven squad as well. And they've not necessarily got the strength in depth to be able to replace like for like. So I think with the injuries that Whitehaven picked up, and that might weaken them, you'd definitely side towards Newcastle on this one.
Yeah, I think so. Let's go Batley. Batley going to London. Or say Batley at home to London. I can't see anything but a London win, can you?
No.
Fantastic. We move on. Halifax against Doncaster. Doncaster, of course, week off last week. Sitting the sixth in the table. Only played 13 games. That's interesting. Of all of those teams in those playoff positions, Doncaster have played the least amount of games thus far this season and sit right in the middle of the pile. They're going up against Halifax. That every now and again a spring in the result where you're going, fair play to Halifax, but I think Doncaster will be fresh. It is away. It is at the Shea. I'm going to go an away win. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd probably side towards that. I know they've not played for a few weeks, haven't Doncaster? I think they've got 3 games in a week. I don't think they play Wednesday as well this week. Yeah. So I think they've got 3 games in 8 days, which that might impact on them. Will it impact on the first one? Probably not. They've got Jack Ashworth in on loan from Castleford as well to strengthen them. So I think we've seen this season already that Doncaster have rotated the team and. They're quite happy to do that. So I would imagine that each team that they play in the next 8 days will be a different team from what it'll be on Saturday to Wednesday to Sunday. So I guess it depends on how the break and the time off has impacted on Doncaster and how quickly it takes them to get into the stride of things after having not played for 2 or 3 weeks. But yeah, you'd suggest on league performances and previous form that Doncaster would have the edge on this one.
Yeah, you mentioned Jack Ashworth. That almost has a feeling with Brad Singleton. We know that Brad Singleton, and he wasn't in the thoughts of Ryan Carr. And when you look at the size, I mean, I look at Castleford's pack, and it's not the biggest. Jack does bring some genuine grunt and size to that Castleford squad currently. It'd be very different, I think, in 27. In the here and now, he does bring a bit of size to the game. I'm almost thinking that Jack Ashworth might be surplus to requirements at Castleford based on that. I'm a bit. If he can't get a game now, it might be that he's got a niggle or he's coming back from injury or whatever. I don't know, but that just has the feel for me that Jack's time at Castleford might not be there next year. Could be wrong, but it's just odd, especially the lack of size that Castleford have got in that middle unit. We'll wait and see. Keighley against Swinton. For me, I'm going Swinton. I can't not.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think on form from both teams, the poor form that Keighley have got, and obviously the victories that Swinton have been knocking off recently, you can't really go any other way, really, can you?
No, I don't think you can. And all due credit to Swinton. They've really come good in this back end. Well, it's not back end, is it? But this middle section of the season, really good. Salford Barrow. Now, look, the league table tells you Barrow should win this, and they should. Salford, great win last week. It's fair to say this is a step up in opposition now, taking on Barrow this week. I'd like to think Salford make a proper fist of this, and it is actually a really good spectacle on the field. But I am edging towards Barrow.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'd agree with that one. But we are starting to see maybe some little inconsistencies in Barrow's performance.
Yeah.
Obviously, we got beat by 2 points up at Barrow, and the way that the start of the game against Dewsbury will be concerning for Cresta up there as well. And I know Ryan Johnson didn't play in that game. I'm not sure if he were injured or if it was just a genuine rotation of personnel. I don't know about that one. But I think the lack of direction without Ryan Johnson being on the field. So hopefully for Barrow, he can be back in this week. There's no T. Ritson there as well for the rest of the season. So in terms of bodies, I know they've got a few people that are playing with niggles, which does impact on you when you're playing week in, week out, and you've not got the people to bring in and rotate and replace people. It can have an impact on the performances that you have. So I think, as much as we're expecting Barrow to go there, I think that Salford, after last week's victory, they might be smelling a little bit of blood, and if they can start off really well and get a couple of scores on the board, then I think they'll be fancying it.
Yeah, like I said, I hope it's a real good contest. I really do, but I don't know. I think I'm going to edge Barrow, but hopefully it's a tight one. Right, your game, Dewsbury. I mean, you talked earlier on about league positions and where things are. At the minute, you've got a 4-point cushion on the Dewsbury Rams. A win here, Craig, for you and Sheffield. You're at home. It really does put one of those contenders that are around you, that a 6-point gap at any team who are fighting for those playoff places at this point of the season is very welcome. You're going to back your own side, no doubt about it. I'd like to think Dewsbury are going to come there and put a proper effort on you, but I'm going to back you on this. I think you've got some troops back now. Unless you're going to tell me that half your team's out, I'm going to back you. I'm going to back you on this one. I think it should be a good game, but I'm going to back you as Sheffield. Your thoughts? I mean, as you do every week, any concerns going into this personnel-wise?
No, funnily enough, it's probably one of the first weeks where I can sit here and say we haven't got any concerns. We got Jack Bussey back last week after he'd been missing for a couple of months, and he made a significant difference to us in the middle of the park. He just got that little bit of, I guess, I use the word quite a lot, grubbiness about him, which you need when you're playing rugby league, and you'll certainly need that playing against Dewsbury. But it gives us that experience. It gives us that ability to play and not run people into the ground. Like George Griffin's played a lot of minutes this year, so it gives us the opportunity to take Griff off the field and leave Bussey out there, and he can do that. He can do them jobs for us. We get Harry Bowes back this week from a 2-match suspension, so I think everybody who played last week will be available, and we get Harry Bowes back this week as well, so we'll certainly come into contention to play. So I think in terms of personnel, body-wise, we're looking as good as we've been probably for the last 3-4 months. So with Massimo Tongo, he missed last week. He's probably going to be struggling again this week, so it might be a little bit too soon for him. But yeah, we'd identified our next 5 games. So we had Whitehaven, we've got Dewsbury this week, we've got a week off, and we play Salford, and then I think we've got Workington and Rochdale. So then 5 games we'd sort of identified against teams that were either just next to us in the league or below us. That if we can get 5 wins out of 5, which is going to be difficult in them games anyway, but if we can get 5 out of 5, then we pretty much solidify our position in the playoffs, and then we might, depending on how results go around us, we might be able to drag some people in from the top 6 where we can try and get a couple of places back. But the old cliche, we're taking it game by game, and if we look too far forward, then we'll forget to focus on the present, which is Dewsbury this week. And we beat Dewsbury in the last play of the game after the Uta at their place, and Jordan Lilla kicked the goal from the touchline to get the victory. So we know it's going to be tough. We know that the sort of team that Dewsbury are, they're a very, very together team. They work hard for each other. tough, they're uncompromising, but they've also got a bit of skill about them as well. So it's got, we need to be on it this week as much as we were last week.
Absolutely. I mean, it must be. I mean, the lads must love Harry Bowes back in the changing rooms before a game. I mean, it gives them a sugar rush, doesn't it? What's the favourite? Is it the mix of the Tanktastics? Which one is it that they prefer?
I think it's Tanktastic is Bowes.
Good. I had to go there. It's just the way you said it, Harry Bowes. I've got to go there. I've got to go there. Outstanding. Wonderful stuff. Workington taking on Hunslet. Last game of the round, 3 o'clock on Sunday. All the Sunday fixtures this week are 3 o'clock as always. I mean, look, the league position, Hunslet sitting quite comfortably above Workington. Got a 3-point advantage there. It's at Cumbria, drier tracks, which is very welcome at this moment in time in that part of the world. I'm struggling on this one. Struggling. Don't know. I think it's got all the makings to be in a tight one. I'm going to show Cumbria a bit of love. I'm going to go Workington on this.
Yeah, I think it's a toss of the coin. It really is. I'm not sure myself. I think both teams really, really struggling on form and confidence, I guess. From an Hunslet point of view, you're looking at your experienced players to stand up here. You're looking at your Lee Gaskells and Yedi Batties and people like that to try and get them through this game. And then you've got maybe a little bit of quality with Billy Jowett at fullback as well that can maybe produce something. I don't know. I'm going to go against you this week. I'm going to go controversial and go Hunslet by a score.
I'd say let's make it interesting. First pint at Magic.
Why not?
First pint at Magic. Why not? We'll go on that. I'm sure that'll even itself out as well by the end of Saturday. But anyway, that's by the by. Good stuff. Outstanding. They are another whistle-stop tour of Championship Rugby League. Get yourself to those games. Let's just very, very quickly run you back through them. Starting on Friday, Widnes. 7:30 kickoff against Oldham at Widnes. That is one not to be missed. I'm sure the Widnes fans and Oldham fans will be there in numbers for that, and rightly so. Saturday, 3 o'clock kickoff, Gould take on Rochdale. Newcastle take Whitehaven on at 4, and then 3 o'clock kickoffs on this Sunday, the 28th of June. Batley, London, Halifax against O'Neill, Keighley, Swinton, Salford, Barrow, Sheffield, Dewsbury, and Workington against Hunslet. Mate, as always, we wish you nothing but the best in what could be a defining game for yourselves and for Dewsbury in terms of where you finish this season. We wish you well, pal, and we'll do it all again next week. On behalf of everybody who watches Championship Rugby League, enjoy your Rugby League this weekend, and bye from me and Craig. Cheers, pal. All the best.
Bye-bye. Cheers.